Chapter 24. The crowds at the mall were worse than ever as people poured into stores for the sales and to start their Christmas shopping, now that Thanksgiving was officially over. It was almost 3 in the afternoon before Lee and I had managed to grab a seat for lunch. I still hadn't talked to Lee about what had happened with Levi, but I'd told him all about my chat with Amanda. Well, he'd said, to be fair to Noah, we all just assumed. Yeah, well, he could have mentioned it, like, to me. He did tell you there was nothing going on between them. I shot a glare at him for that, which is exactly what he would have said if something had been going on. And then he brought her home for Thanksgiving. What was I supposed to think? I know. I'm not blaming you. I thought they were together too. I'm sure my mom and dad were convinced too, even though Noah said they were just friends. After we'd given the waitress our orders, Lee looked serious. What actually happened after you ran out on Thanksgiving? Did you tell Noah where I'd gone? He asked. He heard your car leave. I said you were going to the park because you were sick of his attitude. Oh my God. Tell me you didn't actually say that. And he went after you. He didn't say anything. When he got there, he looked really pissed. I figured you guys had another fight, especially after you didn't come back. I tried asking him, and he just told me to leave it. So, did you have a fight? I never spoke to him. Then what happened? Did he pick a fight with Levi or something? No. Oh man. I didn't want to lie to Lee or to hide things from him, but I squirmed in my seat. Okay, you have to promise not to laugh or anything. Why? Promise me. I promise. So I met Levi at the park. I wanted to let off some steam about Noah and Amanda, and we ended up making out. Lee stared at me a moment before his mouth pinched and contorted side to side, and the muscles in his jaw and cheeks twitched as he tried really hard not to laugh. I glared at him. You promised not to laugh. I watched him draw a deep breath through his nose and let it out before he said, Sorry, but you kissed Levi. Like Levi Monroe, the same Levi you've been hanging out with all semester and swearing you don't like? Like? I groaned, burying my head in my hands. I know, it was a shitty thing to do, especially if I did want to date him. I'd have totally ruined anything now. I couldn't believe you made out with Levi Monroe. Will you stop saying his full name? It's weird. Was it good? What kind of question is that? Okay, was it weird? Not as much as it could have been, but it just wasn't, I sighed. He wasn't Noah. Lee's mouth twisted in sympathy. So what happened then? Noah saw. I didn't know he was there until I saw him leaving. I don't think he overheard anything, but he definitely saw us kissing. Damn, Lee said, and let out a long, low whistle. You guys really need to talk and sort your shit out. I grunted, unimpressed with the suggestion, especially since he was probably right, and we moved on to talk about something else instead, although every 5 minutes was punctuated with Lee saying, I can't believe you made out with Levi. Or, wait till the guys hear. Levi, if you tell anybody, I swear to God I'm going to tell Rachel something you don't want her to know. I tell Rachel everything. Oh yeah? Does she know that you cried harder than me when we watched Marley and Me? Or what about the time I got my first bra and you wore it for a day to see what it was like? The laughter disappeared from Lee's face, and he raised a threateningly at me. You dare. I raised my eyebrows, grinning at him triumphantly. Lee came back to my house after the mall. He didn't even suggest we go back to his, where I might bump into Noah. He'd tried to get me to talk about Noah again, what I was going to do, and if I was going to talk to him, but I stayed mute on the subject. The truth was, I still didn't know myself. I knew I was still in love with Noah. Somehow that made it all so much worse. I was torn between wanting to get back together with him and wanting to never have to talk to him again until I was officially 100% over him. But what if I couldn't get over him until we'd talked things through and he'd explained the whole thing with Amanda was just a horrible misunderstanding? What if seeing him alone was the best way to get over him? What if it just made things worse? My head was spinning with what ifs, and I knew I could think about it for weeks and still not figure out the right thing to do. Lee was only trying to be helpful, I knew that, but he didn't just have my best interests at heart. He was looking out for his brother, too, and he knew his brother wanted to talk to me. I ignored the 2 missed calls I had from Noah and the text that said, "If you don't want to talk, I get it, but let me know." "I think you should at least call him and say you don't want to talk," Lee said. "Or, for God's sake, at least text the poor sap." I still didn't know what I wanted to do when I was lying in bed, tossing and turning, later that night. I couldn't sleep for thinking about it. "I'll go see him early tomorrow, before he leaves. I'll text him in the morning to say I think it's better if we don't talk, and I hope he and Amanda had a nice time here. I'll ignore everything to do with him. I'll see him in the morning. I'll call him when he's back at college. I won't speak to him. There was a rattle at my window. I sat up, twisting toward the sound, and stared at the closed drapes. Another one, kind of like a tap, but whatever it was hit the gutter on the way down. I frowned at the window for 3 more taps before I got up to see what it was. I scrambled out from under the covers and threw open the curtains, peering down through the darkness. From the street lamp's amber glow, I could see a guy in my front yard, and I clenched my jaw tight while my heart did a somersault and his name jumped to my lips. Seeing me, he stopped throwing things. He waved. I fumbled for the latch and opened the window. "What are you doing?" "It's 2 a.m. "Yeah, I know." I gaped at him for a second. "What do you want?" "I have to talk to you. My flight leaves at 12, and I can't not talk to you before I left. I figured this was the only way to get you to talk to me." I stared at him for a split second longer before closing the window. I found some sneakers and a hoodie, pulled them on, and crept downstairs to the front door. I closed it quietly behind me, leaving it on the latch so I could get back in. "You've got 2 minutes, Noah Flynn." "I almost didn't think you were coming." He was holding a bag of Skittles. They must have been what he was throwing at my window, in lieu of pebbles or rocks. Noah strode toward me, coming up onto the porch. I took a half step back. I forgot how tall he was, up close like this. I noticed in the porch light that he was wearing flannel pajama pants and a hoodie and sneakers with no socks, almost exactly like me. He'd come straight here from lying in bed. I set my jaw and stared up at him, resolute. Time's ticking. It sounded lamer than I expected it to. Noah just looked determined, serious. I counted my heartbeats. I got to 16 before he spoke. "Cramps, huh?" "Excuse me?" "On Thanksgiving. We both know that was a load of bull." "You followed me." I accused instead. I felt like you'd left because of me. I thought I should apologize or something. It wasn't fair to you to have to leave because of me. And from talking to Lee, he made it sound like you weren't over me, so I thought maybe I should clear the air. But obviously he was wrong. I stuck my chin out. What difference does it make? We broke up. Who I kissed isn't any of your business anymore. Same goes for you. I thought that was pretty clear when you didn't even call me to tell me you were coming home for Thanksgiving, much less with Amanda. Noah sighed, the sound broken, and he ran a hand back and forth through his already tousled hair, making it stick out even more. I didn't think you wanted me to call. Of course I wanted you to call. I wanted you to call, and I wanted you to tell me you missed me, and tell me how much you loved me, and tell me I'd made a mistake in breaking up with you. Instead, what I said was, if you followed me to the park to talk to me, why didn't you talk to me? Why did you leave? He scoffed, almost scornful, but he couldn't hide the hurt expression on his face. You were really asking me that? I thought you two were just friends. You told me you weren't interested in him like that. Told Lee, too. I wasn't convinced when you kept showing photos and stuff with him, and when I saw that photo of you guys at the dance. But Lee told me. Nothing's going on, he said. Looks like you are making a habit of lying to him about guys you like. My jaw clenched, teeth grinding. I could feel the muscles in my face twitching, not sure which expression to settle on. I was breathing hard, trembling all over, but that had nothing to do with the chill in the air. You have no right to say that to me. It shouldn't matter to you anymore if I'm dating Levi, but just FYI, I'm not. I asked him to meet me because I needed a friend, and not Lee, for once. I kissed him, so what? It was a stupid decision, but it was my decision to make. And anyway, what about you and Amanda? You didn't think to tell me you were bringing her home for Thanksgiving. You are not dating him. No, I said, more softly, some of the tension in my shoulders easing. I'm not. Well, what was I supposed to think when I saw you two all over each other, Elle? Well, what was I supposed to think when I saw all those pictures of you and Amanda? And then you bring her home for Thanksgiving? You could have told me. You could have at least told me you two weren't dating. I did, and you didn't want to hear it. Did you really expect me to believe you when you brought her home for Thanksgiving? She's British. She was going to be all alone for the holidays. It had nothing to do with you, he shouted, and I was shocked into silence. I didn't realize that me having a good female friend was such a big deal. So when you broke up with me out of the blue like that, I thought there had to be someone else, especially when you and Lee are so close. Honestly, I thought you'd be the last person to get jealous of me being friends with another girl. I was suddenly breathless, and had never felt like more of an idiot. What did you expect me to think? After you broke up with me, I thought you were just looking for an excuse. I thought there was someone else. I knew you and Levi were getting close, and when I saw the photos from Sadie Hawkins, and when I saw you two last night... Noah broke off with a sigh, dragging a hand through his hair and making it stick up on end. His forehead was lined, his eyes shining and sad and desperate, and it made my heart ache. We'd both been such idiots. I can't believe you thought I'd broken up with you to be with Levi. You kissed him because I was trying to get over you, and it didn't work. It was stupid, and I regretted it as soon as it happened. I thought maybe there was something, but... I shook my head. There was never anybody else, Noah. There still isn't. We broke up because we couldn't trust each other. I trust you. He reached out as if to grab my shoulder, then my hands, then dropped his hands to his sides, before shoving them in the pockets of his hoodie instead, where the Skittles packet crinkled. I've never not trusted you, but I was never good enough for you. I was never the right guy, and I was terrified the whole time that we were together that the right guy would come along, and I felt like I was just waiting for you to realize that, and to see that the right guy for you isn't me, and... And what? And I loved you too much to let you go, he said quietly, looking up at me from under his eyelashes. His eyes looked unnaturally bright blue in the shadows. I still do. I sucked in my lower lip, biting it hard. Why? Why did I feel like crying? Why were my eyes prickling and my throat itching like I was about to sob? Just because he'd said he loved me? He still loved me. But I had questions. The fact that he loved me and that I still loved him didn't change anything right now. You let me think something was going on with you and Amanda. He shrugged one shoulder. I was jealous. I was mad. It hurt me, Al. When you broke up with me, you flipped out so much over her. I didn't think you'd get it. That we were just friends. I flipped out because you were keeping secrets from me. That phone call I overheard, if it wasn't about you being with Amanda, what the hell was it about? Noah blushed, looking distressed. He shifted from foot to foot and ran a hand through his hair again. Now he looked like he was the one on the verge of crying. As angry as I was, and had been, it fell away in an instant. Noah? I said softly, reaching out to touch his arm impulsively. He jumped when I did, and we sprang apart like we'd been electrocuted. I was failing some of my classes, he said finally. I was going to get kicked off the football team. I was stressed. I wasn't getting good grades as easily as I did in high school, which stressed me out so much it affected my work. Amanda was helping me a lot. She knew because she'd see the grades I got in class or in our lab. I was too embarrassed to tell you. I didn't want you to think I was stupid. I didn't want you to be disappointed. And suddenly everything made sense. It made so much sense, especially given that he'd told me all about how he'd put so much pressure on himself at school before he'd build up his bad boy personnel. I couldn't understand how I hadn't even considered it before. You shouldn't have been embarrassed to tell me, I said quietly. I wouldn't have thought you were stupid. I don't. I wish you'd told me. Would it have made a difference? Yes, I exclaimed. And then I checked myself. I didn't want to wake anybody up. I blinked a few more times, but a tear spilled over. I took a second to try and steady my voice. Noah, before we broke up, it felt like you were hardly talking to me. You kept avoiding talking to me about classes, and it felt like you were cutting me out of your life, like I didn't belong in it anymore. I get it now, but I didn't know, and that scared me. I thought we were drifting apart and that you didn't love me so much anymore. And when you wouldn't talk to me about that call, of course I thought you had something going on with Amanda. It was the only thing that made sense. I'm sorry, he whispered, and I was shocked to see him crying, actual tears hanging on his lower lashes. One of them splashed onto his cheek. His Adam's apple bobbed as he gulped. I'm sorry. I should have told you. About college. About Amanda. I knew there was nothing going on with you and Levi, but I started convincing myself that there must have been after we broke up. And last night Noah trailed off when I stepped closer. You are such an idiot, Noah Flynn. He chuckled, and I brought my hand to his face. running my thumb across the tiered track on his cheek. But you were my idiot. I didn't kiss him. I waited, every one of my nerves coiled and ready to spring. And when he kissed me, I initiated. His lips were tender and insistent against mine, his arms wrapping around me tight, his hair soft through my fingers. I thought I remembered what it was like to kiss him, but those memories were pale imitations of the real thing, and I'd been right to think that kissing Noah was just so much more than kissing Levi. I felt like I was burning up from the inside out, in the best way possible. My fingers trailed over his face and back through his hair and down his arms, and I was sure I'd never felt more alive than I did while kissing him. When we stopped, I clung to him, and he didn't loosen his hold on me. "I love you," he whispered, the words rushing out as though he couldn't say them fast enough. The look in his eyes so intense it was like the words didn't mean enough. I fucked up. I should have just talked to you. I know that. I messed everything up. I just got so scared of losing you that I made things worse. I managed to laugh. That was why I broke up with you, because I was scared that you'd find someone better and forgot about me, and I couldn't lose you like that. I got scared and made things worse. Noah chuckled, the sound soft and breathy, tickling my nose. I closed my eyes, pressing my head into his shoulder and inhaling deeply. He still smelled the same, still felt the same. He was still my Noah. Dragging my head back, up from his shoulder, I stepped back so that I could see him properly. "I'm still in love with you, too, Noah Flynn. Just, in case you were wondering." So? He kissed me, this time just a lingering peck on the lips. Even that made my heart do somersaults. "If you still don't want to be together, I get it. I understand. It's horrible being away from you, and I miss you all the damn time. I don't want to be with anyone except you. But if you find it too hard, then I get it. Just tell me." I think... Oh God, what did I think? I missed Noah so much while he was at college, but however hard I'd tried, I hadn't been able to get over him. Not even a little tiny bit. I didn't want to lose him, but maybe I'd done the right thing by breaking up with him, in case this didn't work, in case we were just wasting our time. Only, looking at Noah, I didn't feel like I was wasting my time. Standing in his arms, I felt like I was right where I wanted to be. I grinned at him. "I think we can make this work."